What's up? It's Mel. Here's the deal. Buying a motorcycle is super exciting. The thing is, it can also be incredibly overwhelming and stressful due to the amount of options you have and the fact that the motorcycle industry is male dominated. That's cool, and I absolutely love the motorcycle industry, but it makes it really challenging for women who want to buy motorcycles because things seem really scary and, at the very least, not female friendly. So I know this feeling and I suffered from it for a really long time. So I got this question from one of my followers about how to buy a motorcycle, and I wanted to make a video about the top 5 things I wish I knew when I bought my first motorcycle. So I'm Melissa Hussong and I'm a motorcycle mindset coach. I help women live authentically by riding motorcycles. In this video, you're going to learn my top 5 things to know about buying a motorcycle, buying considerations, where to buy a motorcycle, what to bring with you, who to bring with you, how to negotiate, and what questions to ask. By the way, I want you to check out my links below for notes on more motorcycle and mindset content. Okay, so you've taken a motorcycle safety course and you got your motorcycle endorsement, which is super awesome. Congratulations. The next thing you need to do is buy your first motorcycle. Now, this can be super overwhelming and intimidating to say the least. I know because it took me over 6 months to finally rip off that band-aid and buy my first motorcycle. It was funny because I wanted it so badly, but I was absolutely terrified of visiting motorcycle sellers to take motorcycles for a test ride. But I'm gonna save you some time and all of the hassle and all of the self-doubt that I went through, and I'm gonna teach you how to do it in this video. Okay, so my top 5 tips for buying a motorcycle without the stress and overwhelm. Let's go. Okay, tip 1, where to buy a motorcycle. There are 2 ways to buy motorcycles, new or used. As with anything, prices and conditions will vary a lot depending on which one you go with. So let's talk about how to buy a motorcycle from a dealership first. Buying a motorcycle requires visiting dealerships and sitting on a lot of motorcycles. You'll want to visit all the dealerships in your area that make sense for you, regardless of what brand of motorcycle you think you want to buy. Say, for example, you really want a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. That is great. There are tons of people who ride them and absolutely love them. So why not just sit on like a Triumph or a BMW or a Honda just to compare? This isn't about picking one motorcycle straight out the gate, but rather think of it as a fun matchmaking process where you get to learn a lot about a lot of different motorcycles and you get to find out which ones you like the best, and then ultimately the one that you take home. So when deciding which dealers to visit, ask around in your network and find out if there are dealerships that your friends recommend. If you don't have anyone that rides motorcycles, then check out dealerships online and read their reviews. Once you get to the dealership, take as many motorcycles for a test ride as you can. This involves pretty much like signing a waiver and giving away some of your information to the dealership, like your address or license number. If you do buy from a dealership, you will be dealing with a salesperson who will manage the sales process, and they're going to help you sign all the paperwork. Most dealerships offer financing, and just to make sure you've done your research, and that is just like a good thing to do it ahead of time. Make sure you've done your research and that you're getting good rates for the financing before you buy. The second option we have is to buy a used motorcycle. So this is the kind of motorcycles that I've bought in the past. Buying a used motorcycle from private sellers follows a similar process to buying one from a dealership. A couple of examples of where you can find used motorcycles are Craigslist.com, Facebook Marketplace, classified ads in your local newspaper, or community pinup boards at your local motorcycle supply store in your town. The major difference with buying from private sellers is you need to have more of an idea of what you want, because you're going to use that brand, the model, and the year as filters in your online search to narrow down what vehicles you want to buy. So once you've found a used motorcycle that you're interested in checking out, contact the seller with your questions. It's a good idea to have a set list of questions that you plan to ask them, and we're going to talk about those kind of questions in a little bit later in the video. So the next thing you need to do is visit the seller. The same thing with buying from a dealership. Bring a friend for backup if it's going to make you more comfortable and confident in your conversations. Try to meet this seller somewhere public, like a gas station or a public parking lot, or just bring in a friend, if you're visiting their private residence, but always tell someone where you're going first. Once you get there, you're going to ask the seller to tell you about their motorcycle and ask your questions. Ask them if you can test ride the motorcycle, and they should say yes. It's common that they will ask to hold onto your driver's license as collateral. If the seller doesn't let you take it for a test ride, then I want you to walk away from the sale, because this is a red flag that something is wrong with the motorcycle. Some sellers might require you to have cash with you on hand, just in case you damage the motorcycle while on a test ride. If you buy from a private seller, you'll probably be paying cash for it, so come prepared with everything you need. Okay, so always inspect the paperwork before you get to the point where you're going to sign it, because you want to make sure the paperwork is legit. Check the title of the motorcycle to see if everything is in order. All right, it brings us to tip number 2, buying considerations. There are countless things to consider when buying your first motorcycle. The first one is engine size. Motorcycle engines are commonly measured in cubic centimeters, also abbreviated to cc's. So engine size can also be referred to as displacement. Both terms are used pretty much interchangeably. Motorcycles designed for on-road use are typically around 200 cc's to about 1800 cc's. And the difference between a 200 cc engine and an 1800 cc engine is characterized by size and therefore weight and the power of the engine. So as a general rule, the larger the number of cc's, the heavier the engine will be. The size of the engine will determine how big your motorcycle is, and in order to accommodate that extra size of the engine, it's typically going to be a little heavier. Engines with higher cc's will typically have better acceleration, and they're going to have higher top speeds due to the increase in power. So the bottom line here is to keep your engine size within your abilities and your purpose for riding. Buying an engine larger than you need can eat up a lot of your budget, and it might be challenging to ride as a beginner. If you're buying a used motorcycle, be mindful of whether the engine is carbureted or fuel injected. Carbureted engines are common in older bikes, and they're going to require a little more maintenance and attention, while fuel-injected engines are really just the modern-day standard. So what this means for you is that carbureted engines can be harder to start up, and they might need additional maintenance over the life of the motorcycle and for all the time that you own it. Also, here, I want you to consider the cost of maintenance for your new motorcycle. For example, is it made locally or is it made overseas? There is a really big difference in availability of parts and the cost of replacement parts. Okay, tip 3, bring a friend. Whether you are buying a motorcycle from a dealership or you're buying it from a private seller as a used motorcycle, it can be really helpful to bring a friend along. When I bought my first motorcycle, I knew that I wanted this motorcycle. I knew exactly the one I was looking at that I was going to buy, but I didn't know a ton about, say, how to check it out or how to inspect for damage or whether to assess whether it was in bad condition or not. So I brought my husband along and he checked it out with me. It also took a lot of pressure off that I wouldn't be the only one asking this older guy questions, because I didn't want to seem like a dummy. Another reason this was really good for me was because I wasn't super familiar with the paperwork I needed to fill out. I did do my research and I Googled the paperwork and what it looked like and what to look for, but I just really wanted a second set of eyes to help me make that assessment, and it was super helpful. I've had female friends visit dealerships with other women as backup too when they were buying a motorcycle. So bring a friend, it's not a big deal. It's incredibly helpful. And one note here, if you can handle the steps of buying a motorcycle comfortably by yourself, then by all means, go ahead and do it. That is freaking awesome. If not, bring a friend. It's no big deal. Okay, tip number 4, ask good questions. Whether you are buying a new or used motorcycle, you want to go into these buying conversations armed with really good questions that give you good answers to the things that you want to know. So it's helpful to ask all the sellers the same questions, and this helps you to collect the standard data on each motorcycle so you can reasonably compare apples to apples. Having a set of questions at the ready will help boost your confidence on the dealership floor and with private sellers alike. When I'm shopping for a motorcycle, I like to ask open-ended questions that elicit really long responses. It's helpful to start the conversation by asking what the seller likes about the motorcycle, why they recommend it, for example, if they're a salesperson and they have multiple bikes that they can offer you, or why they bought it. So this would be good if it's a private seller and they're just selling you one motorcycle. Here are a couple questions that I like to ask. What do you like about this motorcycle? What kind of riding does it handle best? How long have you had it? Are there any known issues? What work has been done on it? Do you have the motorcycle maintenance logs? All these questions will give you information to help you assess whether the motorcycle is something you want to buy. A quick note here about having confidence to ask questions to sellers. I struggled with this a ton. I never felt 100% confident dealing with older males because I'm a lot younger and I felt more inexperienced than they were in this industry. So remember that their role is to sell you a motorcycle, regardless of whether they are a salesperson or a private seller. So if at any point you feel disrespected or diminished in any way, I want you to walk away from that deal. You have the power, and walking away is the ultimate power. I actually had to do this once after I was trying to buy a motorcycle, and this guy was just a total a-hole to me, and it was bad. And I was really, really angry for a while. In fact, I got home and I was like storming around the kitchen with like steam coming out of my ears and eyes. I was so angry. But at the end of the day, I didn't give him my $3,000. And that's what it came down to. I got over it. It was a good lesson, actually. Tip number 5, how to negotiate. Negotiation is tough for a lot of women, me included. So this is not news to you, I am sure. And I want to say that I definitely was not born making deals on motorcycles and negotiating massive pay raises at every job I took. This was a slow and very painful process, and I left a lot of money on the table during this process, but I don't want you to do that, so I'm going to give you the shortcuts. Negotiation can be a long process, and sometimes it takes several days. So I want you to be patient, let your offers simmer, and see what happens. When I negotiate, I do not play hardball. If I like the motorcycle, I am very clear that I like the motorcycle. But I am also very clear that I have a budget, and I am super committed to finding a number that we can both agree on. If you can spin this into a mutually beneficial agreement that benefits the seller as well as you on the price that you agree on, then all the better. The thing about motorcycles is we treat them like children and we love them dearly. So if you go into a negotiation talking trash and pointing out flaws about the motorcycle so you can get a cheaper price, you probably won't be met with a warm reception. I personally think that sellers want their motorcycle to go to a good home. So the more they like you, the better. So the basics of negotiation. Have a price that it is a hard stop for you that you will not go over. Then have a number in your mind that you are aiming for that you would happily pay for the motorcycle. Then I want you to make your first offer below that price that you actually want to pay and negotiate up from there. It's important to know that you do not have to respond to a seller's offer or counter offer immediately. In fact, it can be really helpful to give it a couple hours or a day or two if you need to. Think about it, run the calculations again, see if it fits in your budget, and then agree to the price. At all times, you must be willing to walk away from a negotiation if things don't go your way. This is a really powerful position to be in. If the seller is firm on a price that is beyond your budget, then no worries, another motorcycle will find its way to you. Don't stress about it. It's all super good experience, and your next negotiation will be stronger and it will be a ton better. Okay, so there you have it, my 5 riding tips for how to buy a motorcycle. If you enjoyed this video, and I sincerely hope you did, I want to let you know that as a motorcycle and mindset coach, my aim is to always share information to keep you safe on the road so you can live your best life. I have a small favor to ask. I would love if you would like and comment on this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps get the word out so more women feel empowered to ride motorcycles. So you can catch me at www.herhandlebars.com or on Instagram at Melissa Hussong. I'll see you next time for more motorcycle and mindset tips.